Well, hello everyone. Hey, Mr. Joe.
Ben, it's good to have you back.
Man, good to be back. We had a nice getaway for a few days, but it's
Yeah.
good to be back and teaching the kids class again.
There you go.
We are doing lesson number 12 in this quarter's studies about being in the Lord's army. We
Right.
talked about the books of Joshua, talked about now the book of Judges. We're making our way through the Judges, and you know, Mr. Joe, we're still thinking about that same memory verse that we've been working
right.
on, Judges 17 and verse 6. That in those days there was no king in Israel, and every man did what was right in his own eyes. And what I hope we're starting to see is that memory verse that we're working on, that everybody's just doing whatever they want to do. You know, there's a lot of stories in the book of Judges that show that memory verse is exactly right, and that's why that verse is repeated a few times in the book. You know, we talked last quarter about Leviticus and Numbers and Deuteronomy, and the theme for the entire quarter was about being holy because God is holy. And you know, we're talking about holiness in this lesson too. But whereas in Leviticus and in Deuteronomy, we talked about the laws of holiness. We talked about the priests and the sacrifices and so forth. In this lesson, we're talking about holiness, and especially how those around us can help us be holy, or maybe encourage us not to be holy.
That's right. So, you know, I guess it means that it's important for us to think about people we are around. Sometimes we can be around people that help us to think about God and doing His will and being holy people. But there are some people that draw us away from that.
That's right. So, at this point in the quarter, I'm sure we all know about the cycle of the judges. We've talked about that again and again. And we know how it starts. The people of Israel, the people of Israel turn away from God. They turn to the idols of the Canaanite peoples. And because of that, God lets one of those Canaanite nations come and oppress the people, and their lives become very hard and difficult. And so then they cry out to God for His help and His deliverance. God raises up a judge who then comes to their rescue. The people turn back to God, and the cycle will then start over again.
But these are a people I don't think we've talked about before.
That's right. In this lesson, we're talking about a new nation that's going to oppress the people, the Philistines. Now, Mr. Joe, you've got the map here.
Yeah.
Show us on this map, where are the Philistines exactly?
You know, we've talked about the Canaanites, the Ammonites,
The Midianites.
the
we talked
Midianites,
about.
yeah. And so this time the Philistines, if you remember here, you know, the land of the children of Israel, they have conquered Canaan. And if we were to go way down here on this part of the map, and even below, down here, right along the Mediterranean Sea, right in there, that's where the Philistines
So
were
right
from.
there around Mr. Joe's belly button is where the Philistines
Yeah, that's right,
live.
all the way down here. That's right, yeah.
You know, Mr. Joe, the Philistines, though, are not a one-time enemy of the Israelites.
No,
they are a constant
You're
enemy.
right.
And in fact, even in the days of King David, who's going to come along later, the Philistines are always there being a problem for the Israelites.
Well, they're not a huge nation, but they sure are strong.
That's right.
And they have some strong soldiers, and they come and fight against the children of Israel just a number of times.
Yeah, for a long time. That's
Yeah.
right. So it was important for God to raise up a judge to deliver the Israelites from the Philistines. And today's judge is one that we've all heard of.
Samson.
He was the big, strong
Big,
one, right?
strong guy. That's right, Samson. And so, kind of where this story starts out is that, you know, an angel of God appeared to a woman of Israel and told her that she was going to have a son, and that his name would be Samson, and that God would use him to deliver the children of Israel from the Philistines. So we know right off something about who Samson is and God's purpose for him, that God is going to use him and call him to be a deliverer for the children of Israel.
Can I ask you to stop for just a moment and make this observation? Even before Samson is born, the Philistines are oppressing the Israelites.
That's
It's
right.
already happening.
Oh, yeah.
And God raises up a deliverer, but usually it's a deliverer who's already alive.
Right.
Here is one that God says, I'm going to raise up a deliverer,
Yeah.
but he hasn't even been born yet, which means God is not bringing about their deliverance immediately. It's going to take some time for it to happen.
That's right. So really that means the children of Israel have to suffer for a while.
That's right.
And maybe that's by God's design, that he's trying to teach them a lesson. Because as they have moved away from God and not been obedient to God, now they are suffering because of that. And it's almost like, it makes me think, God is just saying, okay, you're going to have to suffer for a while. I'm going to bring a deliverer, but it's going to be a while.
You're going to have to wait for him.
Yeah, that's right.
But they waited, and he got older, and he got strong.
Oh, yeah. See, this is the thing about Samson that is so interesting, and it makes him such an interesting Bible character. He was strong. I mean, in a very special way. Now, his strength was not his own. Okay? It is God who gave him this great strength. But a couple of examples that the Bible tells us about to give us an idea, if you say, how strong was Samson? Well, I'll tell you how strong he is. Or maybe I should say, God tells us how strong Samson is. You know, one time, Samson got in a fight with a lion.
Wow.
Yeah, he got in a fight with a lion, and he killed the lion with his bare hands. Okay?
Oh, my word.
So, I mean, this is scary to think about. So that tells you something about his strength, about his ability to fight, but that's not all. See, there was another time that Samson got in a fight with the Philistines, and he killed 1,000 Philistines.
No.
Yes, it did. The Bible says so.
How did he do that?
Well, he was so strong. Well, he took the jawbone of a donkey. Okay, like the jawbone. He took that jawbone, and I guess he used that as like a weapon.
Are you serious?
That's what the Bible says.
And he killed 1,000 people?
1,000. Samson killed 1,000 Philistines using the jawbone of a donkey in that fight and in that battle. And so that says again something about how strong he was.
Wow.
Yeah, wow. Okay, another time. Let me tell you another time.
Please.
Okay. So the Philistines, I mean, as Samson has grown, matured, he's a man now, and he's got this strength, and he killed the 1,000 Philistines. Well, guess what? The Philistines are not real happy about Samson. Okay?
Of course.
And so there's this occasion where they were waiting for Samson at the gates of the city. They were going to kill him. I mean, at least that was their plan. They were going to ambush him, and they were going to kill him. And so Samson came to those gates. You know what he did? He pulled the gates of the city up, put them on his shoulders, and he carried the gates away. How could Samson be that strong?
Well, you said God was with him, and
Well,
that his strength
right.
came from God.
Yes. And this is, I hope we remember this point, okay? That Samson's strength came from God. And Samson was serving God in a special way, in that he had taken a vow, and he was not cutting his hair. This was part of a vow that the Israelites sometimes took. It's called a Nazirite vow. That's a story for another time. But anyway, his hair was long, and God had said, as long as you don't cut your hair, my strength and my power is with you. And so Samson could not cut his hair. But now the strength wasn't his hair. The strength came from God.
Okay. All right. So, Rapunzel was a strong... Samson.
Not Rapunzel.
Long hair. I'm sorry.
Oh,
Samson was a really strong man, Mr. Joe, who did a lot of great things for the people of Israel.
Right.
But in some ways, Samson was also a very weak man.
Weak? I mean, look, he had muscles. He could carry the gates of the city. He killed 1,000 Philistines. Well, what do you mean? How can he be weak?
That's not what I mean. You see, Samson, he was physically strong. He had muscles. He had great physical strength. But what he did not have was great willpower. He did not have great spiritual strength. We might say, and that got him into trouble.
Okay, so we can have physical strength and we can be strong, but we might not be strong in the eyes of God.
That's right. And Samson is one example of this. Let's talk a little bit about one example of Samson's weakness. You know, Samson was very weak when it came to women.
Uh-oh.
He made some bad choices when it came to the women that he brought into his life.
That's
and
true.
Remember where we started with our video. We talked about being holy and the people that are in our lives, companions,
Yes.
friends, people that we have in our lives, they're either going to help us be close to God or they're going to take us farther away from God.
Right.
Now, Samson, one of the mistakes that he made was when he chose a wife. You remember, Mr. Joe, from our studies in Leviticus and Numbers and Deuteronomy, God said to the Israelites when they went into the land, do not marry the Canaanite people.
That's right.
Don't let your sons marry their daughters. Don't let your daughters marry their sons. God said you are forbidden
That's
from
right.
doing that.
And God had a reason for that.
That's right. He didn't want them to influence his people. And yet, Mr. Joe, guess who Samson took as a wife?
Oh, no.
He took a Philistine woman.
And they worshipped other gods.
That's
the Philistines did. They did not worship Jehovah God.
That's right. The very people who were oppressing Israel, Samson chose a wife from among them.
That can't work out well.
That's right. And Samson decided that he was going to take this Philistine woman as a wife because the Bible says she looked good to him. She was pleasing to his eyes, is what it literally means. Now, that got Samson into some trouble.
Yes.
And after a while, Samson left his Philistine wife.
Okay.
And he later found another woman
Oh, no.
whom he loved, and her name was Delilah.
Delilah. I think we need to remember that one.
Yeah, I think
Delilah.
so. We may have a question on that
Right.
coming up in another video.
Okay.
Delilah was someone that the Philistines wanted to help. Wanted her to help them. And they went to Delilah and they said, we need you to find out the secret of Samson's strength.
Okay, so then that makes me think that Delilah, like, she was not a very nice person.
Probably not the best woman to have in his life. Yeah, I think that's
Okay.
right. So Delilah is going to start begging Samson to please tell me, where does your strength come from, and what would have to happen for you to lose your strength? How could you ever lose your strength? And so Samson would tell her, well, if you did this, then I would lose my strength. And she did it, but his strength didn't go away.
Because he wasn't giving her the real
That's
reason.
right. And this happened again and again and again.
Well,
And
finally, Delilah kept working on Samson, saying, please tell me why you have so much strength. And finally, he told Delilah, he told her, it's because my hair has never been cut. So now she knew. And you know what she did? She snuck in there and she cut his hair. And when she cut his hair, you know, when he slept, and you know, shaved it all off, well, the Philistines then, whom she had told, here's what I'm going to do, I'm going to cut his hair, and now you'll be able to come in and take him. And they did.
That's right.
They came in and they made Samson their prisoner.
Yep.
Because his strength was gone.
You mean the deliverer whom God raised up to save the people from the Philistines was himself given over to the Philistines?
He was. But you know, the reason that happened is because he did not do what his promise was, his vow. He was not to cut his hair. He had been told, he understood. That's why he had strength. And he got weak, and he told Delilah about the strength because of his hair being long, and she cut it, and now he doesn't have that strength. And the Philistines came in, and they took him prisoner.
He became weak.
He
That's
did.
the key to what
He
you
did.
said. You see, it's not just about his physical strength.
Right.
Yes, God used his physical strength on occasion to deliver the Israelites. But we also, Mr. Joe, have to have an inner strength of character.
Yes.
An inner strength that says, I'm going to do the right thing because it's the right thing to do.
You know, sometimes it's good if we take care of our bodies. Well, not sometimes. It's always good if we take care of our bodies. And it's okay if we have physical strength. But you know what I'm starting to see? Is it is much more important if we work to give strength and build up the inner man, the inner body.
That's right. So when the Philistines came and captured Samson, what did they do to Samson when they captured him? Do you remember what the Bible says?
I do. I didn't know if you wanted to say this or not because this is really gross.
Yeah, it is.
When they took him prisoner, okay, you can just imagine them grabbing him and dragging him off to prison. And when they did that, they gouged his eyes out.
They ripped his eyes out?
Yeah, they gouged.
So he was blind?
He was blind. So now he can't see. He doesn't have strength.
Oh,
he's in prison, and this is really gross.
But that's not the end of the story, is it?
No, there's more. There's more. Because when they put him in prison, do you know what happened over a period of time? What about his hair?
It grew back.
It grew. And as it got longer and longer and longer, he asked God to give him strength one last time. One last time he asked God to give him strength. And God did. God gave him the strength he needed. And you know what he did? Okay, so there was this big gathering. It was like a party among the Philistines. And they brought Samson out in this party. No, they were not inviting him to, Samson, come have fun with us. No, that's not why they were bringing Samson out.
They brought him out to make fun of him.
They did. They did. They brought him out. Oh, the one that was so strong. Now he's blind. Now he's weak. But his hair had been growing, and he asked God, give me strength one last time. And you know what he did? I mean, at this building where they were at, there were columns that was holding up the second floor. And Samson, he got in there between those columns, and with the strength of God, he pushed those columns out, and that whole building fell down.
And what happened to everybody inside?
Well, they died.
Oh, Samson too?
Well, of course, Samson died too, because he was right there at the bottom when he pushed that out. But boy, that was a powerful message to the Philistines.
And the Bible says that there were 3,000 Philistines who died that day.
3,000?
I think it's important for us to emphasize that Samson's strength was not in his hair. We have men today in our world who have long hair, but they don't have superhuman strength like Samson did. The hair really was a part of the promise and the vow that was made to God.
Right.
God gave Samson his strength.
Sure.
And God was the one who was working through Samson. Even with Samson's weaknesses, God still showed his strength. And let's think about that for a moment. Samson disobeyed God's commandments.
Yes.
When he chose the Philistine wife.
Right.
When he broke the vow that he had made with his hair. Samson didn't always make the best choices.
Oh, he made some mistakes.
And that's right. And as strong as he was, he didn't always do the right thing. Samson still needed God's forgiveness. He still needed God's help. And even though Samson made a number of mistakes, God was still able to use him to defeat the Philistines and to do what needed to be done.
That's right.
And so I think that we can learn a lesson from that, Mr. Joe. We're going to make mistakes today.
Right.
We're going to disobey God at times. We're going to fall and we're going to give into temptation. But that doesn't mean that God just writes us off and doesn't want anything to do with us.
What are we going to do about it?
Yeah, God can still use us even when we make mistakes.
Yeah.
And we need God's forgiveness. We need God's strength. And God can use us to do what he needs us to do in this world.
That is right. And I guess that's what we have to even pray, that God will use us. And when we make mistakes, to help us see the mistakes we make and help us to turn from them so we can be the holy people that he wants us to be.
That's right. That's right.
That's an interesting story about Samson.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's a lot of things to remember from this one, and I hope God willing, on Wednesday night, we'll have a trivia night, and I think there'll be some questions we can come up with about Samson.
I think so. Well, thank you everybody for watching our video today. We hope that the lesson's been helpful to you. We look forward to seeing you again soon.